Right then, welcome back to another video. This one is for Lemmings, as you can see clearly, for the PlayStation 3. Now this is a downloadable game only, digital release, didn't come out on a physical format, which is a shame, I guess, for the purists in us who like the physical form. But it was only $5.99, and that's in dollars. So $5.99 in dollars is around about £3.50, give or take. Now it's funny because I'm a massive Lemmings fan, particularly from years gone by. You know, the 16-bit machines, the ST and the Amiga. But it was only recently, and I'm talking, well, whenever I downloaded this earlier on this year, that I knew it was even available on the PlayStation Network. And like I say, it is only available on the PlayStation 3, so if you've got a 360, you're not going to get it. You've got to get a PlayStation 3, you've got to convert to the dark side. Or the light side, depending on which way you want to look at it. So I know what you're thinking, $5.99, absolute bargain. How many levels do I get? Well, you get 45, it's funny you ask. Yeah, you get 45 levels, and they're all divided up into 5 different difficulty levels. You get Trial, Fun, Tricky, Taxing, and Mayhem. And predictably, the Mayhem ones are absolute mayhem. Funny that, isn't it? I was going to say chaotic, but no, I guess they are mayhem, seeing as it's called mayhem levels. And they're really, really difficult. I mean, ultimately, you know, you can do anything with a bit of patience and, you know, put your thinking cap on. But they get to the point of, honestly, you'll have to do these levels again and again. Now, one of the reservations I had before I bought this game wasn't the price tag. Obviously at $5.99 it's cheap, and it doesn't matter if it's rubbish, quite frankly, for $6. But the main reservation was the control method, because when I think of Lemmings, and in my memories it would be with the Atari ST and the Amiga, I think of controlling it with a mouse, and obviously on the PlayStation 3 you use the controller. Now, as it happens, I didn't have a problem, and don't have a problem with using the controller. I admit that obviously if it's a mouse, it's not going to be as accurate, as precise. But no, I didn't have a problem with it, but I have seen some people who don't think it's as functional, if you like. But it doesn't really cause any problems. And if anything, you know, it's set up well. I mean, you know, this is a game which is specifically designed for the console, or for the PS3. So obviously, you know, they're not going to release something which has got clunky controls. Well, saying that, I just bought Killzone 2 again the other day, but that's that's a story for another day. But yeah, for me it works well, and a mouse obviously is preferred, but it's not the end of the world. So my biggest problem really with Lemmings isn't the price. Obviously that's cheap, but as a result of a cheap price, what you're going to get is a lack of content. Now, as I touched upon, there are 45 levels, which is quite enough, you know, to get stuck into. But the variation, the level variation, not so much in what you've got to do and the puzzles, but in terms of the backgrounds, the aesthetics to look at, there's not enough. You get something like this will crop up every now and again with, you know, the thunder and lightning will happen. You get something resembling a haunted castle. I think we may have seen this already, I haven't been paying attention. We certainly will see that level in a second. And you get the very first one, which is like kind of a factory. And that's all you get. And I can't help but just think that what they should have done with this game was to release some DLC. Now, they're not going to do it now, because obviously it's 4 years on since it was released. But I don't know, just an extra maybe 10 or 20 levels, with maybe 5 or 6 variations of backgrounds. And it just would have made the game a little bit more, well, obviously varied for a start, but it just would... I can't help but just feeling that this game is a little bit stale because it doesn't offer enough variety. As fun as it is, you know, it's essentially just Lemmings, and I'm sure we all know how that plays. And it plays here just like it did basically on the 16-bit computers, or any computer or console system for that matter. But yeah, it's just sadly lacking in a bit of variety. But with that said, you know, it's only $5.99, and maybe it was a teaser. Maybe it was a teaser by, you know, the developers to release it for a small price, to see how well it does, and then if it did well, which perhaps it didn't, they could have went on and released a full retail release. Now, one of the things I've got to give the game a lot of credit for is the music. Now, it's kind of like the levels. It's not so much varied, there's not a lot of it, and it usually sounds the same, or a slight variation of the previous version. But the sounds are fantastic, the music is good. You know, the creaking of the floorboards, the howling of the winds, the thunder and the lightning in the background, the sound of the Lemmings, which is obviously very reminiscent of the 16-bit versions. I mean, that's fantastic, and it can't be faulted. And it really does make the game feel very, atmospheric, I guess. So yeah, overall, I think it's a really good game. For the price, definitely pick it up, or download it. You'll have a hard job picking it up, seeing as it's digital only. But yeah, just expect the fact that it's going to be somewhat limited, simply because, again, of the price. I don't know how many times I've mentioned that, but it is relevant. Don't expect too much, because at $5.99, you kind of get what you pay for here. And finally, let me share a little anecdote with you. A Lemmings anecdote, and a retro one at that. And it goes back to 1992, and I was going on holiday to Tenerife, and I really wanted to borrow my friend's Game Boy, because I thought, well, you know, it's a long flight there, plus while I'm there may be a few days and I'm a little bit bored, and on the way back, obviously, you know, on the flight back, that could come in really handy. And I can picture it like it was yesterday. I was outside, I think it was the geography room. I know that means nothing to you, but instead just picture the geography room in your school. And not that that makes any difference. In fact, I'm just confused the matter now. But anyway, I was outside of this geography room, and my friend was there called Ben, and I still speak to him now occasionally on the likes of Facebook and the Xbox 360. But I digress. And I went up to him, I said, Ben, can I borrow your Game Boy? Just flat out, can I borrow your Game Boy for a week? And he went, well, no. You know, I play it, I use it. And I went, well, all right. And I thought on my feet, and I thought, well, do you know what? I've got 2 copies of Lemmings, because a friend had given me a copy that he had, so we had a duplicate, which meant that I now had a duplicate, which is kind of silly. And I said, well, if you lend me your Game Boy, I will give you a copy of Lemmings. And he went, are you serious? I went, yeah. So he said, all right. So he lent me his Game Boy. I had it for an entire week. You know, used it on the flight there, used it while I was in Tenerife, bought a few games for it in Tenerife. Some dodgy 500-in-1 game carts that were knocking around in some equally dodgy and suspicious Tenerife kind of electronic stores. And when I got back from Tenerife, I sold it behind his back. No, I didn't really, I'm not that mean. I gave it back to him in condition, he was happy, and so was I. But it's just kind of funny, because when I think of the Game Boy, obviously I remember it from like 1989, 1990, but I specifically associate it with October 1992 and Tenerife. So anyway, that's about that. I'm going to play out with an updated version of the classic Amiga ST Lemmings song, which is obviously for the PlayStation 3. So give it a listen and see what you think of it. Thanks for watching. See you later.